Hello, everyone. Welcome to Psychology and Spirituality, a Bridge to Better Life podcast. And each week we meet and we explore what I call this intersection of psychology and spirituality. And each and every week I walk out of here with so much more knowledge and capturing some timeless wisdom that this guests like you, Yuri, bring to us. So thank you for being here. My name is Marcia Trajano. Yuri Castro is here with me once again. How are you doing, Yuri?
I'm doing very well. Thank you so much, Marcia. It's a pleasure and an honor to be here. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to everyone.
Thank you. And I want to welcome you back to the program, Yuri. As we know, we met last week and we discussed the topic was the spiritual mission of the family, right? And
Yes.
specifically, I don't know if you remember, it's been 7 days, but we talked about those karmic or those hidden bonds that connect family members. We also talked a little bit about the cases of unresolved emotional conflicts and some insights into how can we strengthen our families. And today, Yuri, I propose that we dive into what I consider quite rich content. We've been talking about family from very different angles, but uh, if we can go a little bit further in yet a different perspective, a different angle to this topic based on Joanna de Ângelis' writings. So, Yuri, can we talk about love, responsibility, spiritual growth, and also I would love if we could maybe discuss about this powerful idea that the family is where our greatest opportunities for evolution unfolds, right? So, are you ready? And if so, can we start by discussing perhaps the family with a concept that Joanna brings to in her writings, the family as a divine project? And I would ask you, in your opinion, why do you think Joanna says that? Why does she describe the family as this treasure, this gem, this something so important? And she, of course, as she highlights and elevates the concept of families, or she downplays the idea that it is not or should not be a social arrangements. Do you have any thoughts on that aspect of her work?
Absolutely. Great point, Marcia, and connects very well, like you said, with what we were discussing in the previous episode regarding the karmic or the spiritual ties and the meaning that we can see in families regarding those ties and the divine project that Joanna talks about regarding the families is because there is this unique opportunity, and that's why she uses the word treasure, because treasure is something that there's a connotation of something valuable, something that is sought, after, like something that we value. So
Yeah.
family as this opportunity is something that is so great for us to understand as immortal spirits, because then it changes our perspective completely. We can see family as being this arrangement that goes way beyond the social arrangement, because if we think of just a social arrangement, we're
Hmm.
thinking with materialistic eyes. We're thinking of just this one life. There's one chance. There's only one thing for everything. When in fact we should be considering the multiple reincarnations of the spirit, the connection between the family members that were more likely than not forged before this current
Hmm.
life. So
Yeah.
when we see like that, we can see, wow, this is an opportunity that I have to evolve, to grow spiritually with these people that are
Hmm.
around me. And who knows how long and how much effort it took for us to be in the situation together.
Yeah, somebody just mentioned to me, and it was a short conversation. And it's so funny as you bring about these immortal souls, immortal spirits that come together, that more likely than not have met before, right? And this conversation was just a chit chat with this person, and she mentioned, you would laugh at Yuri, that so this woman is older than me, and so her youngest daughter is not so young, right? Granted, but it's her youngest daughter, and we always see our children as young ones. No matter if I am 100 years old and you're 80, I still see my 80-year-old as my baby, right? So anyway, so she was admonishing herself for this and that, and the youngest daughter comes in and gives her the biggest, the most insightful, the most profound lesson. And we're not going to go into what the lesson was, but the youngest daughter did that. So this friend was like, huh? Wait a minute, who's the mother here? How come she's so wise? And yes, the answer to that, uh, you know, thoughts and internal question is
Hmm.
we don't know.
Yeah.
Our youngest being in the 40s or 10-year-old, they may be much wiser, older
Oh
spirits than
yes.
we are, right?
They may be, and it's interesting you mentioned that because I was actually talking to a friend today about that because I
Mm,
have two very young sons, and we
yeah,
were talking about, oh, these are children, but at the same time, who knows how long this spirit has been there, what they actually bring to the table, because we look at them so small. My oldest is 6, and you
yeah,
think, oh, it's just a child, like, because we're looking at it oftentimes with just like this materialistic view. But if we stop to think about it, we have to just imagine, like, how old is this spirit, what do
correct.
they actually bring with, already, with talents, with a skill set, with all of those things that they have worked before, and also the things they need to work on. So it's interesting you mentioned that, because I do think that we oftentimes, if we're not very mindful, we can look at our children, or we can look, and just say, oh, they're younger, they don't know much better. But really, like, sometimes they may end up knowing way more, but because they're in this this envelopment, this fleshly, like the bottle, like the
Yeah,
container, this
yes,
container that is very small and underdeveloped biologically, but spiritually, who knows
yeah,
what they're bringing. And like I said, how long did it take, and how much effort did it take actually for us to be in this situation together? Because we see this in many books in the spiritist literature
yeah,
about these families that take sometimes centuries, millennia even, to
yeah,
be able to be in a position that they can rekindle, these love connections, or they can amend these ties that were broken perhaps thousands of years ago. So it is such a unique and important experience. Would you agree?
yeah. Well, I agree, and this is a point that is so important for all of us to reflect upon, to be reminded that what it could be understood as random arrangement of people coming together, random, because historically speaking, contextually speaking, we're no
Yeah.
longer, at least in the West, um, marrying from an arranged marriage type of situation, right? I happen to, side note here, when I was in India several years ago, Yuri, it was so beautiful. The whole thing is still crystallized in my memory, because we were at a temple, just beautiful temple, and quite large courtyard, and we had a tour guide telling us about the art, etc., etc. And we saw this group of girls sitting in a circle, and a group of boys in another circle close by, and yet a larger group of adults talking. And so he pointed to us and he said, this is an example of what you see in the arrangement to get married, where oftentimes the boy, let's say, is not even sure about the girl, and the girl is really not sure at all, but it is a social construct to put those two individuals together. We're not judging here. We're just going to flip to the West, where for many centuries now, that has diluted that type of coming together to start a family is no longer done. Right? We eroded the concept of arranging for climbing social, political,
Yeah,
or just simply power arrangements, and we come together because we love, and behind the love, which is pure abstract, because we cannot really quantify in numbers, but we can feel strongly that emotion can unveil, right, or mask, perhaps not unveil, but mask millennia, as you said, of uh, getting together in an orchestration to put those two souls together to now be part of a new family, right?
absolutely. And even if we think about the cultural piece,
Mm-hmm.
or let's say there's probably a reincarnatory arrangement or something
Yeah,
before that
yeah,
as well.
yeah,
And
yeah,
in many cases, these cultures where there's this arranged type of marriage, in a way, for the higher spirits might be actually easier, because like, okay, we're gonna put you here and here, and your family, they want to bond, so you guys are gonna get
yeah.
together. Now we have too much freedom, so who knows? I think from it's actually, if we think of the other side of this, the flip side of the coin here,
Maybe
it
easier.
again, everything is fair, and everything happens not by accident. So
Yeah.
even if we think of something, okay, it was merely for social
Uh-huh.
reasons, or because of power, or because whatever
Mhm.
it may be in these cultures, and how it was in the West in the past, we
Yeah.
can also think the higher spirits are always helping. So even in those situations, guarantee there is a reason behind that. It's not randomness, because God, we know, is not unfair.
Yeah, and I think it's in the book written by the spirit author Andre Luis, right? Psychographed by Chico Xavier, Action and Reaction, that he
Uh-huh.
brings a little bit about that reincarnatory, say, plan that is designed before we ever come together. And I just remember a movie, Yuri. Um, it's What Dreams May Come. Have you watched that
Oh, I
movie?
love that. Robin Williams, yes.
Yes, I
Absolutely, it's one of my favorite movies, yes.
yeah, it's beautiful, right?
Yes.
It's a feast to
Very
the
emotional.
eyes. Yeah, and it's beautifully crafted from the as if it was a work of art. And I read the book before I watched the movie, and you would say it is a spiritist book,
Yeah.
because 90% of the book is very, very much what we understand as that reincarnatory plan, and the trials and tribulations, the consequences in this case of her suicide, and his bond, right? His I want to rescue you, my daughter, my darling. I'm sorry. So, anyways, when I think of that, and why did I bring it up, that movie specifically, is the fact that in I'm drawing from memory, so correct me if I'm wrong here. At the very end, because they love each other, they commit to come back,
They do. Again, this,
right?
yeah.
And it ends with the two kids meeting at a beach, I think.
Yeah.
It's just so
Yes.
so cute, because we don't see that. Why is that I see somebody and we see love at first sight, right? There's this
Yeah.
boom, this strong connection, and you are in a crowd of 1,000 people, but two people are drawn to each other. And
hmm
it explains this. If I flip from the idea of this this design, this divine design, this divine project that is done before we are even aware, before we even meet the other. Um, do you think that we are, and this is just your opinion here, but do you think that we, again, Western society,
Yeah.
are we prepared as couples to perhaps join together in a marriage in this case, or whatever it is, to start a family? Do you think that we're ready intellectually and emotionally to really cultivate all the aspects required to to express love in all its dimensions within the family? Meaning, are we fulfilling our mission as part of a family in this divine project?
I think again, it's hard to generalize, right? Because
Mm,
each case is very unique, and each family has its its own trajectory and the spirits as well. But of course, if we're talking about fulfilling the steps that we can definitely fulfill and love how we know how to love so far, given our own evolutionary pathway as immortal spirits, we of course will find limitations. But I do think that I think that we have what it takes. We are. I think that we are able to actually love and to be able to uh, uh, fulfill these commitments that we make before we reincarnate, and be able to forgive and be able to love and be able to
mm,
bravely accept someone else and to help them and to exert, like, to do charity and all those things for people that are in our closest circle, aka the family.
yeah,
This microcosm of society, as we've talked in previous episodes too. And
yeah,
I think that that is a big piece when we look at ourselves and we see, okay, this is how much I still need to learn, and how much I still need to grow, and how much I can help those around me to grow as well, and grow from them and with them, and learn
mm-hmm,
from what the things that they have already acquired, perhaps, that I may have not acquired just yet. So I
yeah,
think it's a very organic, very fluid sort of process in this evolution. But yeah, I think so.
yeah. And it's very interesting because Joanna, in many of her books, whenever she's talking about um, men and women or whatever it is, because I don't want us to be very um, formulaic in what it is, that union, right? But when two individuals come together, and the from Joanna, that coming together, I'm going to call marriage, it's really an opportunity for growth, right? An
Hmm.
opportunity not only to say you're super compatible, you can live together, but what else, right? What are the choices? What are responsibilities? How are we um, fulfilling our mission individually and with the family unit and socially? So it's escalating in terms of what we are
Yes.
doing through the marriage. And I find it quite interesting, and this is just a thought. The family of today, Yuri, and it was funny. I was just watching, so funny. Uh, a friend, please don't judge me, but this is really cheesy French series about Agatha Christie's murder. It's a murder mystery in the 70s. So it's just really cheesy
Okay.
because it's hyper caricaturesque. But the first thing that comes to my mind was, boy, and I wasn't prepared for the level caricaturesque of an era of women having the rights, right? And you go,
Yeah.
wait a minute, but it's funny because we're evolving. So this is from the movie, but if you go back to the family of today, is no longer that family, say, pre World War II, right? Or even with the changes with the aftermath of that war, where women became much more able to join the workforce.
Uh
And
huh.
then more changes in terms of a dual income and what happens to the children, who does what when, and it just each not even generation, but each evolution of that family unit keeps changing, adapting, maturing. And today, absolutely, it does not look like what it was, for example, when I was born, or a generation later when my parents were born, or even two generations earlier, right, when my
Yes.
grandparents. So, if we look into that, and I'm thinking about the arranged marriage example, when you said maybe it's the easier path, but I keep wondering, this new family of today, it's probably one that allows for the required or the I'm trying to compose my thoughts here, and I'm not doing a good job at it. But as we are really accelerating our spiritual growth individually
Uh-huh.
and as a family and collectively, the change in what the family looks like is allowing for richer and more complex groupings of people that will fulfill that idea of love. Any thoughts on that? Does this make sense what I'm saying?
I think I mean, I don't know if I understood exactly, but I understood part of what you're saying, and I think at
Uh,
least that's what my mind is telling me. Like,
yeah,
in the sense, Marcia, in the sense that these groupings are becoming more complex because the spirits are getting more complex. If we think of again, as we always use the analogy of a school, if we
yeah,
think of a group of peers that are in the last year of high school versus a group of peers in the first year of middle school,
yeah,
how complex are their conversations? How complex are their interactions?
that's
I
right.
think same thing when we think of the unit of the family composed of spirits that guaranteed 2000 years ago were much more crude and different than what they are now, because the law of
Mhm.
progress
Yeah,
propels everybody forward, never
yeah,
backward. So if we think about the school analogy, which is also very simplistic on my part, but if we think about the type of interactions and the connections and everything, the conversations, the level of knowledge of those two groups, we can see a stark difference. And I think it's similar to what you're saying, that right now it's allowing for more complex dynamics, for more complex knowledge to be able to be put into place, this knowledge of the spirit, of the immortality of the soul, with the advent of spiritism almost 200 years ago now,
yeah,
where we have answers to things that we didn't have 1500 years ago, when we were still thinking in a way that's, or even 500 years ago, we were still thinking in a way that was way less complex and perhaps more fatalistic, and with
yeah.
these arranged marriages just for the sake of social component, and all of those things. So yes, I do think it's getting becoming more complex because we are also becoming more complex.
Yeah, it's almost a kaleidoscope
Yeah, yeah.
of spirits coming together for example, right? Uh, I am married to somebody who was married to somebody else, and children from that union. I brought my union. So you see, it's very interesting.
Yeah.
How do we exercise love in different or evolving structures of us
Yeah.
being together? But anyways, I wanted to maybe pivot our discussion, if you don't mind, borrowing from the idea not only of this divine project, this the reincarnatory plan that we create or co-create before we are born. But if we talk perhaps about the children, not as our children, and reminds me of oh gosh, what's his name? Khalil Gibran. There is a poem that is so
Mm,
beautiful. Your children are not your children; they're children of, and he goes on.
mhm.
A beautiful, beautiful poem that he wrote. and but the children as not ours, like this sense of ownership, but as and Joanna brings that concept to us, that children are, quote unquote, I'm doing air quote here, divine loans. And
Oh,
when we bring or think about that, if they're not mine, I'm responsible for them, right? But I don't own them. How does it change the way we see parenting, right? And even
yeah.
we were talking earlier about the when we see that way, we always automatically start to assume that that child, this 3-year-old, 4-year-old child, may be a much older spirit. But beyond that,
Hmm.
can we talk about it, perhaps?
Yes, amazing. I love that you brought that because the divine loans, as you said, that Joanna talks about, relates directly to this idea that,
Mm-hmm.
for I mean, from a material perspective, everything's gonna stay behind.
Yeah.
The body we inhabit, the names we carry right now, the the family arrangement, as far as like I'm the father of these two sons, named this and that, like that's gonna stay behind. What's gonna matter is after, like how we deal with it these right now, and then we leave after that, and who knows what will be in our next life. Because the thing is, the divine loan, and the word loan already implies this notion that it doesn't belong to me. So these my two sons, they don't belong to me. And I think what
Yeah.
it helps, because that's your question, I think it helps us open our eyes, and
Yeah.
it really corrodes, or I guess not corrodes, erodes the materialistic view of, this is me, selfishly speaking, these are my sons, nobody can have them, they must be all for me and no one else, this and that. So the selfish tendencies, when we these are eroding as we start to understand that these children, quote unquote children, because my sons are children right
Mm-hmm.
now, but
Mm-hmm.
these immortal spirits, they don't belong to me.
Yeah.
They are, in the sense of temporarily being my sons, but that's right now. I don't know what was before. I don't know what's going to be after, but they are all children of God,
Yes.
just like me, just like you. So
Yeah.
when we think of that, that's why she's saying, I think, divine loans, because again, we think of God being the father slash mother, whatever we want to think about, of everyone. So
Yeah.
we don't own, we don't, these children, they don't belong to me. And I think
Yeah.
that's a big component, because a lot of the times we see excessive selfishness, and we see this materialistic way that that parents oftentimes go about when there's a divorce, for instance,
Yeah.
of the
Yeah.
children almost treated as like prized
Assets.
possessions,
Yes.
so
Yeah.
assets, so
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
so I think that having this notion, they are my children, they are my sons, they in this life temporarily, that's it. Because after however many decades I still have left, that's it. That those labels, they will be gone, and they
Yeah.
are children of God, just like me, just like you.
Can I read to you? I found just an excerpt of Khalil, and I'm not sure if I'm saying his name right. Khalil.
Uh-huh.
Anyways, Gibran's The Prophet. Beautiful
Yeah.
book I read when I was quite young, and in the chapter called "On Children," I believe it's one of the most beautiful reflection on what we're talking here, the spiritual independence of children. So he says, Gibran says, your children are not your children, right? They're the sons and daughters of life's longing for itself. They come through you, but not from you. And though they are with you, yet they belong not to you. You may give them your love, but not your thoughts, for they have their own thoughts. You may house their bodies, but not their souls, for their souls dwell in the house of tomorrow, which you cannot visit, not even in your dreams. You may strive to be like them, but seek not to make them like you. For life goes not backward, nor tarries with yesterday. And I just think it's absolutely, absolutely
Mhm.
gorgeous message, right? On the law of progress, as you mentioned, alluded to earlier. We cannot just hold on to to um, a crystallization of what that being is. It's the future belongs to them, not to us, right?
Amazing. I love the poem. I never heard it before, so that's nice, and it's good how he interplays with the prepositions. He's changing the
Yeah,
prepositions, and he changes the meaning completely. Very, very nice, very deep.
very good. Awesome. Let me see, because we're talking a lot about a lot of things, but I wanted to see maybe what we should talk next is um, the notion, and it's very hard, by the way, the discussion from Joanna de Ângelis about sacrifice, right? And
Uh-huh.
countering as a counterpoint to spiritual maturity. And she brings that idea that sacrifice does not mean martyrdom, victimhood, right? So you say is sacrifice. We always think of martyrs or complete loss of everything. And to me, the word sacrifice just means becoming the effort will become sacred, right? It's a way to get closer to God for the sacred output of whatever you're doing. But how can we do this? How can we see um, the family as in your case, your husband, your father, but you're also a son, you may also be a brother, a cousin, so on and so forth, right? But as the father, in your case, it it's important for us to talk about do we feel that, oh, I'm a father now, I have to let go of my dreams, right? Instead,
Yeah.
it is through the mission of taking care of those children, in this case, we really get closer to them, to ourselves, and to God, right?
Yes, absolutely. Because we hear the word sacrifice used a lot. Because I mean,
Hmm.
each person, I think, listening to this or watching this may have a different concept, perhaps, of what
Hmm.
sacrifice entails. And because we
Yeah,
always hear, "Oh, your parents sacrificed so much for you," or we sacrificed so much for you as well." Like we always hear this word thrown around, and
yeah,
I think without martyrdom, that this comes when we understand that it's so beautiful to have a family, into being a family. I think, Marcia, because it does teach us about sacrifice, in the sense of I need to live for others,
yeah,
regardless of being a son, a brother, a cousin, a father, a husband. It doesn't matter. My life is interconnected, and we're all where there's this interdependency
yeah,
within the family members, within the family unit, and even as society as a whole. Because I think it's so beautiful to think that, hey, I'm sacrificing, um, I'm sacrificing, my time to be able to work so I can provide for my family. So I am making a choice
yeah,
to provide better for them if I'm working a little bit more, perhaps, or things like that. But that's a conscious, quote unquote, sacrifice. And that's what I said, because it teaches me as well, like, hey, I'm doing this for them, but at the same time, I cannot lose track of who I am and my dreams, like you said, because I think a lot of
yeah,
the times this happens where they just they see everything as sacrifice, and there's victimization, and therefore you think,
yeah,
okay. But then with that comes guilt, with that comes pointing the finger. I sacrificed everything for you, and now you're giving me that. There's a lot of negative emotions that can start up from when we see it like that. Instead, if we see it sacrifice as like, hey, um leaving something behind so I can pursue something different, that's the sacrifice we want to look towards.
yeah. The and another movie that comes to my mind, the images come to my mind when we're talking, Yuri, my apologies. But Schindler's List, and I may have
Mm,
talked about it before with you, but and there's lots of, it's based on a book, real life, and there's this the yin and yang of that story. But what I wanted to point that out is his sacrifice, which is a lot about self-serving, granted, but his sacrifice to help all those individuals from been killed during the Holocaust, right, during World War II, um, was his legacy. And I think maybe that's what we can think about it. It's not that I'm sacrificing and now my child, I took care of you. The sacrifice means you're going to take care of me. No, you don't have to. My love for you was this opportunity, this treasure, as Joanna de Angelis tells us, to by taking care of you, I learn about love, right? And through, if you will, renunciation or giving up, spending my whole time just partying, etc., etc. And I'm just joking here as a visual image, but I'm
yeah.
doing this, and it's not, as you mentioned already, it's not about I expect a payback, but it is growth and psychological and
Yeah.
spiritual maturity, right?
I think that there's a phrase that comes to my mind that my father always talked about. Is it's in Portuguese, but it's something like every time the meaning of the sentence is like every time you choose something, you're giving up on a thousand other things. So and
Yeah,
every time with every choice you make,
yeah,
you're leaving a whole array or a whole gamut of choices behind because you chose that. So I
yeah,
think sacrificing that way as well. Whenever I'm thinking, okay, I'm going to, I gave the example of I'm going to work more so I can provide a better life. But there's also, okay, I'm going to work less because I want to give my children more time with me instead of
exactly.
working. So that's the other side of it. I'm sacrificing perhaps getting more money, perhaps becoming richer, perhaps having more, professional accomplishment, but but I'm giving up on that to gain something else, which is time with my family, my sons, my wife, bonding, and all those things. So with every choice you give up something else, and
Mhm.
that's affecting life. So the sacrifice, I think,
Yeah,
when I think of the word sacrifice, means I'm making this choice in favor of everything other that I can choose, but I have to be conscious and aware that that's the best choice for me and for others.
absolutely. And I think the key message to me is how can I, as a parent, give without losing myself as well, right? Which means the using the word sacrifice, becoming sacred, can be a sacrifice of
Yeah.
silencing, if you will, some of my aspirations that were perhaps more egocentric, but now I
Yeah.
can no longer be in that space.
Yeah, and a lot of families go through that. Especially, I usually see this when very young parents or unplanned pregnancies and like things like that, when families are formed in that manner where it's more unplanned or people are younger, there's a lot of talk of like, oh, I had the dream of doing this and this and that, or traveling that place, and getting that degree, and but I sacrificed everything for the child, etc., etc. But with that comes this whole like load of, oh, I lost myself, I lost my identity, and that's something that is very important for us to realize. We have many identities in the sense of, and you already mentioned a few of mine. I'm a father, I'm a husband.
Yes,
Yuri the father, Yuri the husband, Yuri the psychologist, Yuri the friend, Yuri the cousin, Yuri the son, Yuri the brother. And the
yeah,
thing is, we can't lose sight of that, I think, Marcia, because a lot of the times, if I'm gonna eliminate completely Yuri the professional and focus solely on, let's say, being a brother, then
yeah,
what? Then
yeah,
am I? Is that really the right choice? Maybe it will be for some people, but more often than not, what we see is regrets, because people
yeah,
say like, "Oh, I sacrificed everything, and now I feel lost."
yeah,
Now what do I do now?
Yeah, the famous midlife crisis, right? Where we climb with the top of our health, the top usually of our professional
Yeah,
careers, maybe financial well-being, and at that point you go like, whoopsies, not really what I wanted. But that moment of reflection that should we be always emphasizing one versus the other. But when we talked about it, and it's something that you said so well, a concept that perhaps in some cases families come together after millennia, that
yeah,
orchestration to come together truly may have taken many iterations to ready those souls to come together to fulfill their mission. So from that perspective, family, the concept of family, is one of a laboratory to heal, if you will, past lives, right? Some past
yeah,
wounds, and it's really important from that perspective. If we go back to sacrifice versus legacy, this is like I'm thinking of again Schindler's List. His legacy was his sacrifice that led for hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people as the children and grandchildren, great grandchildren of those that he saved, right? So, but in a less epic proportion, all of us will have a legacy based on how well we embrace our responsibility within the family, but also understand that some families really are the only purpose, the success of that family is all about being together to address, to heal some old
yeah.
conflicts, right?
Absolutely, because when we look at, again, when we put the lens of the spirit and we see those things in that nature, we can definitely see. You said the word laboratory, so we can think of like
Yeah.
I thought of these different chemicals, combining into this concoction, and that's how kind of like how families are. You have these very different elements, and you put them together, and they form something completely unique, and that is absolutely beautiful. Because yes, sometimes it takes millennia to
Yeah.
orchestrate those elements, to combine them together and say, finally, now these four people are able to the third one was lagging behind, but now they caught up. So now we can, like, maybe everybody can reincarnate together, this and that, so forth and so on. Of course, I'm being overly simplistic here, but we don't know. That's why I
Yeah.
said we don't know how much effort and how long it took for us to be in the situation, in the position in the family that we're in. We don't know. So the best thing that we can do is value that, is to
Yeah.
try to be better every single day, just a little bit, but be better every single day, as a person, as a father, as a husband, as all those different roles that we talked about.
Transcend, right? Transcend our, I would say, egoic constructs, which is
Yeah.
based on a false sense of what success looks like.
Hmm.
Success is, and I know a dear family that I work with, the mother who the success comes from just high powered, very um, nice titles within the organization that we work, and the children going to Ivy League schools and getting the best and looking a certain way. I mean, it's really all of the pressure, Yuri, has led one of the family members all almost die of malnutrition through eating disorders, and because there was this on point, and it broke my heart to know the story behind the so-called success. If we and I'm not judging. They're doing quite well now, but it was a very difficult moment they went through. But if we think about it as the baseline, is this what we want,
Yeah.
or Do we want to heal those wounds, right? Or do we want to just purely love? Maybe that spirit came to you in your family to be loved. And doesn't mean love without discipline, right? But to be just loved, to embrace that spirit as the spirit is, to give them wings to grow. So I think it's really important. And which brings that notion that goes back to something we talked last week, which is uh, sometimes we do have to go through some very difficult relationships within our family members
Yeah.
because they will confronting through those difficulties will allow everyone to grow, right?
Everybody can grow always,
Yeah.
because we, again, the law of progress. But the thing is, how much are we seizing those opportunities? How much are we actually
Mhm.
taking those moments and saying, okay, this is a time for reflection, this is a time for me to grow? What am I actually pursuing? That's the big question too, because
Yeah.
these
Yeah.
midlife crises you talked about, they definitely revolve around this idea that I'm pursuing something, and I get to a point where I'm like, oh no, something is missing. This is not what I thought it was.
Yeah.
And you feel the emptiness and you feel despair coming from that emptiness, and so forth and so on. So it's like a domino effect of sorts. So balance is very important. When we talked about the different identities, this breaking these selfish patterns of I'm just gonna do everything for myself, and I'm just gonna
Mhm.
work and not like be a millionaire, and then my children have like five different babysitters every single day. I mean,
Uh-huh.
is that really what they need? Is that really what
Yeah.
I need to see with them? Like, have they come here only to for that? Really, like it's something for each one of us, I think, to reflect, because again, each case is very unique. It's hard
Yeah.
to generalize, but the only thing we can generalize is that everybody is here for a purpose. There's no randomness in this, the family
Yeah.
arrangements.
Mhm.
Nobody's in the wrong address, spiritually speaking.
Yeah.
And we all evolve. So we're meant to be together and evolve together. So the question becomes, what can I do? What is my role in this?
Yeah. And I was just going to add to that. That includes if you're adopted. That
Oh,
includes
absolutely. There's
all the
no
many,
randomness. No.
yeah, the kaleidoscope of different family types. It does not matter. You are
Hmm.
here because you were chosen to be exactly where you
Hmm.
are in whatever circumstance. And the circumstance that comes to my mind, Yuri, uh, reference physical, right? Your physical body, your mental um, well-being, your emotional well-being, your spiritual well-being, all of it comes together despite of some aspects that like I could be better.
Yeah.
Remember, you're here to really fulfill your mission within the family, and doing that to you directing the growth of the entire humanity. It's not a small feat, it's not a small mission, but it requires us to focus on our that family cell, the family unit first, and then beyond, right? I want
Yes.
to I want to say that Yuri, that Joanna calls the family as an island, right, where God gathers spirits to build universal love. And
Hmm.
I think that's quite an interesting quote because it really demonstrates that at the end of the day, it's all about love. It's about respect. It's about humility, self-awareness, and but most importantly, how can I love those that are uh, quote unquote chose to be with. So,
Yeah.
are there any final words that you would like to perhaps to wrap up our conversation today?
I think, again, thinking of the divine justice perspective, there's no injustice, divine injustice. So it's, if we're here for a purpose, if we're here not because of a random event, then let's make the best out of that. Let's realize what it is that we can control, what we can sacrifice, and make the best for ourselves and for those around us that are all who are also spirits marching towards the plenitude of the spirit.
Beautiful, beautiful. I would say that fulfillment in the family, and this is for me, but for all of us, perhaps, fulfillment in the family is not about achieving perfection, right? Fulfillment in the family, it's to exercise, to express love in movement, in evolution, in progress, in growth, so that we are aligned, we're truly becoming uh, sacred or sacrificing with how we talked about the word in everything that we do. Yuri, it is time
Thank
for
you.
us
Yeah.
to say goodbye. Time goes by so fast, doesn't it? But I
Yeah.
want to say thank you. Thank you, Yuri, and thank you all of you who are here with us today. If this is the first time you are listening to a program, please take a note. The Psychology and Spirituality weekly talks are based on the works by Joanna de Ângelis. Yes, I know you heard us talk many, many times in reference to her work, her body of work, right? But I do hope that you're able to perhaps get some thoughts that are meaningful to you around this topic. And Yuri, thank you. And thank all of our sponsors, Maçã do Caminho, the United States Spirits Federation, the International Spirits Council, and AMI Brazil, the Brazilian arm of the Medical Spiritist Association. Yuri, such a pleasure. Thank you so much for being with us. And until next time.
Thank you so much, and until next time.